good? It's your boy, Brother Royce. One time for your mind. Oh. Live from Accra, Ghana, with my main man, partner, friend, family, everything. My friend, please introduce yourself.
Alright, I'm alone. Just like I always said, I'm a steward of our process.
Yes.
Yeah, that is how I put it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's been adventurous today in having our brother Hakeem
Yes.
in Ghana. I think this is your second time being in Ghana.
Time.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, how was your first experience in Ghana, and then your first time in Ghana? How was the experience like as compared to this experience before we talk about what we saw today in town?
Well, the first experience, I came in 2018, and I always say the first time I came, it expanded my mind. Okay, how a lot of us live in America is we never leave our own neighborhoods. We live and we die in our neighborhoods. You know, so we think that the whole world is like our neighborhood.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So coming here and traveling here, I always say the most profound experience was standing at the top of a hill and watching like all of the melanated, all of the black people moving together like water. And I didn't realize that in my mind, I had a belief system that black people could not live together in peace. So when I came here and saw everybody coexisting, living peacefully, everybody waving, everybody smiling, everybody's happy, it blew my mind open because I didn't think that.
So when you came in 2018, you went back to America.
Yes.
So we're talking about comparing two things. Have you had any different perspective after going back? Before we come to this session, I think after going back, what has happened?
Yes.
You know, any developments, like any new developments and any other things you'd like to talk when you went back?
Everything changed. Everything changed. Before I came, I was like a youth pastor in a church.
Okay.
You know, and I was teaching the Bible and teaching God from not a Eurocentric perspective, but from a lack of knowledge perspective. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean by lack of knowledge?
A lack of knowledge of what the Bible really was, what it was really about. And when I say that, I didn't understand what I was missing. It's not that I was teaching a Eurasian, European perspective, but it's that I understood it better after being here. You know, and I understood things about, okay, why did Christ always speak in parables? Oh, because the African people have a tradition of passing stories down through parables. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So learning the culture, I had already been in a church that was run by an African pastor for like 4 years. But they really gave us what America says Africa is. So you learn about it from Africa, but it's like, okay, this is as much as I want to know about Africa because what they teach us about there isn't that good. So we'll take an African pastor, but to actually go there, we'll wait on that, you know. And we all had our desires to go, but it was a trip that we were never able to make. So now going there and coming back, I had a different understanding of God, a different understanding of Jesus, a different understanding of the Bible. And I really understood like everybody here loved like how the Bible said love. The way the Bible teaches us to love where we come from, it's like an ideology. It's like this is where you ideally want to be. When I came here, I actually saw people living like that. And I'm like, wow, this is how he wanted us to live. We don't have to die and go to heaven to see it. This is how people are living right here. So it completely changed my perspective on everything. And it was a huge shift, especially seeing the dungeons and especially talking about the truth behind the narratives that they've given about Africa.
And all of a sudden, this golden voice from the Caribbean came and stood on the corners in Harlem and began to talk about self-esteem, holding up your backbone, you know, no wishbones. And Mr. Garvey gave them hope that there was a dream for black people.
Garvey told black Americans that their history did not begin with slavery. Africa's glorious past was also theirs to claim, he said, and people who had once done great things could do them again.
Garvey's message was revolutionary because at that time, it told black people that they had to unite. They had to come together as one and believe in their roots, that they came from something greater than they were told. To begin with, Africa was called the Dark Continent. And the pictures that we got of Africa in those days were cannibals running around in the jungles, putting people in pots. Garvey changed all of that.
Yes, the world, portray to everybody that we live on trees.
Yeah.
We live in caves.
Huts, cannibals.
So I want to ask you.
Lions walking through the front yard.
Yeah, so let me ask you. So are we living in caves here?
No.
Are we living on trees?
We're living better. The Africans are living better here than a lot of us are living in America. A lot of coming from the airport to here, I saw that even from 2018 to 2022, a lot of development has happened here. And I noticed, like maybe if you're here every day, it's like, oh yeah, we're not going fast enough. But I instantly noticed like, wow, that wasn't there. And that wasn't there. And hey, like, so, we used to ride with Kojo on the bicycles through the, on the scooters, just throughout the town. Like Kojo used to drive me around the town. A lot of the roads are built now and are paved now. When I came, all of the businesses were in like the compartments. Some of the businesses are in buildings now. Yeah. So to me,
it's one of the greatest opportunities for people.
Yeah, the amount of building and the amount of development that has happened here between 2018 and 2022 to me is amazing and it's astonishing. When sometimes you live in communities that never change, and now you see the place expanding so quick. So it's definitely gonna be the home for a lot of change.
In the olden days, it was clay. They normally use clay, just clay.
Yeah.
But it took like so many years.
Yeah.
They started using cement. We also have some houses with bricks, like those small bricks. And bricks, using bricks to build normally helps in regulation of temperature. Yeah.
The bricks?
Yes.
So what's better to build with, bricks or cement?
Bricks is not bad, but it's very expensive using bricks to build.
Yeah.
Because bricks is able to regulate when the temperature is hot.
Yeah.
It's made the room cool. The room is, when the temperature is cool, it adds some form of warmth. So that's. Yeah, that's cement. That's bricks. Not these bricks. We have some bricks.
Yeah.
Also that we use in buildings. The cement bricks. Yeah.
But the bricks are just better at regulating the temperature.
Clay. Those bricks are made from clay that bake clay. I go.
Nation in building.
So you see, these are new buildings. Like I told you, like this house for instance, I'm very sure was an old house.
Yeah.
But then somebody can come and buy it. buy the old house, break it and build it. Rebuild it to have more houses.
See.
So you see, these are old houses. These are old houses.
Mm.
These are old houses. But these are old houses. See? But somebody could come buy it, renovate it,
Yeah.
or build something new. They just pull down the whole structure, demolish it, and build a new structure altogether. And getting the land in this town, like where we are right now, is a hot cake.
Yeah.
There's no available land to even buy.
Mm.
Yeah, so
But look at this house.
yeah, this is a very old house.
Yeah?
Very old house. Do you know why?
Why?
I don't know. I stayed in this area before.
Oh.
When we came to this town, okay, when we came to this town, I'll show you our first house where we stayed.
Mm.
We're almost there.
Everybody's building.
Yes.
And I'm just so happy and so overjoyed to see that the African people are building. They're building. They're developing. We walked around. This is day one. This is after day one. We walked around and just watch everybody building. Yeah.
So this is cement. So this one is more like an adhesive.
Mm.
This adhesive.
Oh, like adhesive, like it sticks.
It's powdered.
Mm.
It's powdered. So if you add this to sand and you add water, like what they're mixing now.
They're mixing it
They
now.
mix the cement with the mixture.
Mm.
This mixture is comprises of sand and stones.
Mm.
Okay, apparently they're going to use it for concrete.
Nice.
Concrete. So after adding this and you add water, as the air passes over, it becomes hard.
To deal with the elements.
Become adhesive. So you see, let me show you something. So you see, these are blocks, or you can use bricks. This one is also made of quarry dust. So quarry dust, and the quarry dust is there. And the cement. Yes, and the sand. You get it.
Yeah.
So the quarry dust is made out of broken literally rocks. So you get this out of it. You add sand, you add cement and water, and then they have something they mold it. So they leave this for some time,
Yeah.
and it becomes hard. So as you can see, that is those are the
Oh, that's what it becomes.
yes, that's how it becomes. So you now put it like in a structure. So they gauge it, they measure it with spirit level and other things. So you want mix cement and then sand it with water again. Then you put it in between.
Sand, cement, water.
Yeah, to make it hard. So they put it in between to make it hard. You get it? So they built it. When you get to this level, you see this level?
Yeah.
We have iron rods. Iron rods to make it. Because since this is the story,
Yeah.
you need to make it, secure it, and make it hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so this can be there for years, 50 years. More
It
than
won't go
50 years,
nowhere.
it does not go nowhere. Sometimes even 99 to 100 years.
Jeez.
They say that 100 years. Yes, more than 100 years. See, this thing will be, so it's more than 100 years investment.
Yes.
See, it's more than 100 years investment. Then these are stores.
Oh, yeah?
Stores, so you can just imagine
Yeah.
renting this for 100 good years.
And you see the sand and rocks and gravel. You see the cement, pipes and broken down cars all over the street, and the roads aren't paved. And you know, when we first came, it's like, man, you have that Western image of this is a third world country. But now walking the streets today, comparing visits, walking the streets today, and you see the same piles of cement, the same piles of sand, the same broken down cars. You see the pipes and the piping all over the place. And it says, yeah, you mix the bags of cement with the sand, with the gravel, and you use that to build your
This
houses.
is the floor level. They put metal, iron rod on it, and then they support it with these woods, and then they mix in concrete. So that's stone, water, and cement. They put it on it, and when it dries, this is how it becomes. They put in the plastic, so that it will give it like a nice finishing. You see? So it gives it a nice finishing. And also it makes the strength of the cement become very potent.
The plastic.
Yeah, plastic, because the strength in the cement wouldn't sink. So this one secures it and another comes out. So these are brothers hustling for the day.
Yeah. Everybody needs it.
Yeah. So this one's like they pay their wages.
Yeah.
You work.
Hell yeah.
And then there are the people I will be using for. These are the people the guys.
Yeah.
The hustling guys are the people I normally use for my work.
That's what I want to do with the people that come over.
Yeah,
Have them
okay.
work,
So,
have them building.
You can go so that you
So you see the piles of sand and the piles of gravel and the pile, the bags of cement, and you see them everywhere because everybody is building. And it's like, whoa, it changes the whole filter by which you look at the country now. It's like, oh, it's like a big project everybody's developing, And say, yeah, you see the broken down cars because this is where they train the children and train the youth on how to work on cars so that they become masters. So they have cars at all stages of being built, from the frame to all the way built up and driving the roads. It starts putting everything into context. And everybody's building, man. And yeah, they have areas here where you can be like, I want to buy a 1-bedroom, or buy a 2-bedroom, or buy a 3-bedroom, or 4-bedroom. But I love the idea of you buy the property and you build whatever you want. If you want to build a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air mansion, build it. As long as you have the room for it, build it. With a guest house and a swimming pool and a gym and an MMA room and a dance room, a room with hardwood floors and big mirrors where you can do cardio and Zumba if you want to. build your kitchen however you want to, build your bathroom however you want to. This stuff will cost millions. Millions where I'm from. Millions. Well, this is where I'm from. So this will cost millions in America. You know? But here, you have only to, number one, purchase the land. And number two, learn how to build it.
Because it's not easy to pay rent. Good money or what? It's not good, like, it's not so easy. Not easy.
Rent every day. Rent.
If you have your own house,
You got plans and dreams and stuff you want to accomplish. Got to pay rent. Oh, I ain't got nothing left. Well, see you next month.
so if you have your own house, you have no rent to pay. That alone has solved
That problem, yeah.
a problem.
For real.
And save money.
For real.
So people don't care putting all their money into building
Yeah.
because they know at the end of the day they will see.
They build is done. So, the way the building works is this, okay? When you move and you purchase property, you can either move into something that's already built, you know, if that's what you want to do, or most people choose to do is they buy the property and they build on the property. They build their own home. So, if you buy the property from somebody else, you're renting from that person. That person is your landlord. That person owns the property. You have to make monthly payments to that person. So what most people choose to do is they choose to put their money into building the home. And they can build it up however they want to. They can build it up with however many bedrooms they want, whatever design they want, pillars, Adinkra symbols, whatever colors. They can completely create their own house. Now, for the money that you put into it, once the house is built, that's it. No rent, no nothing. You own the house perpetually until your great-great-great-grandchildren decide to sell it. It is your house. It is owned perpetually. Okay? So, as opposed to a lease where you have to sign a lease every year, you purchase the land instead of leasing from somebody, and you can own that land 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, and it just passes down to your children, to your children, to your children, to your children, to your children. And what they do over here is like when the house has been in the family so long, and now things are updating and things are, you know, the times are changing. This is how long, this is generational wealth. This is how long the homes are in the family. So as times are changing and as things become more modern, which this happens over a course of decades, you know, so as things become more modern, they tear down the house, but they own the land. They own the land, so they tear down the house and they modernize it. They either renovate it or they tear it down and they modernize it. They rebuild it back up with all of the present day amenities, and it carries on for another generation after generation after generation. So, you know, one of my sisters, Miss Inga, she asked, what is the key to generational wealth? This is it.
We stayed in this
Yeah.
area. So this bricks. See the bricks?
Yeah.
These bricks. So you understand it. You see, they are so tiny, small.
Yeah.
So you need more to build, and that will be expensive.
So they just build with the cement.
Others also use it for design, just for design.
Yeah.
Like clay, baked clay. And this one like this is rock. That's filtered rocks. Big stones that are.
Animals over here chilling.
You see?
That's awesome. Minding their business. They used to humans, ain't it? Humans ain't no big thing to them. What you just seen was one of the first stops that I had when I got to Ghana. Day 2, fully rested. Now we walking through the town, I be going through the town, and we call this City Walk, okay? And while it's not an official stop on the tour, it was just something that, you know, the host felt that he wanted us to do, wanted me to do, you know, because he really wanted to show me the climate of the town, you know, and the progression and the advancements that the people are making. And I like the fact that the advancements that's being made there in Accra, Ghana, where I was, but as well as all over Ghana and in a lot of places in Africa as well, is the advancement is on the side of the people. You're not seeing a big government advance that the people have to find a way to be a part of, but it really is the people advancing themselves. And the biggest takeaway I had from it was the ability to own land. You own the land, your name is on the property itself. You know, over here in America, you never really own anything. And even though you have something called real estate, the only difference between renting and owning the real estate is maybe a renter pays bills every once a month and the person who owns the real estate pays every year. But the renter is dealing with a third party to the bank that owns the property, or the person who owns the real estate is really dealing directly with the bank that owns the property. But either way, in America, you never really own anything, especially not land or property.
The land that are free, but it costs a little money. Yeah, and you're correct. The government and the banks are in cahoots when it comes to those deeds. You know, so you own the property, but you technically got to keep paying on it for their policing, for their ambulance, for their trash, for their water. You know, I like the fact that Ghana is building up, because you know, here in America, big lush, plush, green grass, that shows success. But out there, they showing it from the dust all the way up. And that's honorable as well. When you own it, it's yours. You know, you gotta find the resources to get that thing built up on, but once you're living on it, you know, that's a life too. So I wanna say to Americans, and I'm saying to myself, not to be afraid to go out there and live globally. So, but yeah, again about that America thing, man, you're never gonna be without bills. It sounds good to be debt free, yeah, possibly, but you're always gonna have a luxury tax on life because you got that money, so you gotta pay that new price. You're always gonna have a maintenance fee. You ain't gonna cut all the acreage all the time. You ain't gonna clean every 100 rooms. Or I'm just speaking on a billionaire. Even if you're a billionaire, you got to spend to stay in. They'll tax your money, even if they can't tax the land. They'll tax you on the money. So yeah, we just got living in a system where it's always a collection.
That's how it was with Mom's and her property.
Yeah.
My mom's, well, really it was my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother, she owned the property.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a little kid, they came and be like, hey, it's been 30 years, you know, we actually paid off the property and everything like that. And even as a little kid, I said, oh, so since you paid off the property, that means you ain't got to pay no more on it, right? And it's like, well, we still got to pay taxes every year. And I'm like, well, if you don't pay the taxes, what happened? Oh, they can still come and take the house back. So I'm like, damn, then you never really own anything then.
You really don't own it, because if you don't pay the taxes, that's grounds for foreclosure. So you done bought the house, you done with the mortgage, right? But that land underneath that house there, that belongs to us still. By you having your name on it, though, you can still say that it's yours, and you can pass it down. You know, it's still a beautiful thing, but you know, just never build free life in America. You always gonna have something to pay.
You arrived yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
Apparently around, you picked it around 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 4 p.m. from the airport. So
Yeah.
when you're coming back home, what was your experience? Is there any new developments in Ghana? Because the moment you entered into the country yesterday, I realized there was some kind of relief.
Yeah.
I saw some kind of relief,
Yeah,
and it's like you're so hyper, you know, not just hyper, you're so euphoric about you touching the soil once again. And I was like, oh, it's like I used the word yesterday. You know, you came out as like a dog that has been unleashed.
Yes, an animal out of the cage. You know, when I first came here, one of the trips that we took was to one of the local schools. and it was indicative of how the African Alkebulan people looked upon America, you know, and every time they would introduce me to somebody, they would be like, this is Kofi Rashid. Kofi means born on Friday. And Rashid is from my middle name, is how they pronounce my middle name. So this is Kofi Rashid. This is Hakeem. And he's from America. And if you say he's from America, everybody goes crazy. Yeah, he's America. And it was always telling me, like, we want to go there someday. We want to go there.
In this part of the world, that's when it comes to Alkebulan, there are a lot of brothers, youths who are eager, who are daring, and then doing anything they could so that they can travel to the States because they see US as a land of opportunities and everybody wants to. And even as it stands now, I saw you very happy coming to Ghana for the second time.
Yes.
Just like you are also happy. I know there are other brothers who are also thinking that this is not a place for them to be.
Right.
But they have to, rather go to America, for greener pastures.
Right.
And all that.
As Alam was even asking me that question, what would you say to like the African people that want to leave here and go there? It reminds me of the story of Adam and Eve. And not just the story in itself, but the Bible as a book, the Bible as a whole. And in the book of Proverbs from Solomon, he says, wisdom is her. Wisdom is a her, And in studying scripture, when the serpent came to Eve, he said, I will give you wisdom, right? Eat this fruit and you will become wise. And she saw the fruit as desirable to be wise. And I always studied that and understood that to mean she was looking for something that was already within herself. She was looking for herself. Wisdom is a woman. Wisdom is her. You understand? So when he said, this fruit will make you wise, she was looking for herself. And she didn't realize that it was within, so she took the fruit.
Before, that is after touching the ground from Kodoka International Airport, there to this residence.
Yes.
Yeah, I was asking about your experience.
Yes.
Your experience from the Kodoka International Airport through to the road to their house.
Yes.
Yeah, how was the feeling like? Even though I observe you being like relieved and all that, but you can explain it better. You can explain it better. So I would like you to speak about that. Yeah.
I always quote that. I'm going to quote that on my Twitter. The African people said I was like an animal out of the cage, a dog off the leash. But, we're made to live in conditions of stress. I don't come from the American dream part of America. I come from the part of America that they hide, that they don't talk about, or that they put on the documentaries. Been through depression since adolescence. I'm always stressed and confused and vexed, like complex and bullies make me get weapons like Smith and Wessons, or maybe Texan. If I'm confessing, I might use it on myself, cause death feel like my only respite. I feel so helpless, but with this weapon I feel empowered. I wonder if it's how the police feel when killing ours. We Willie Lynch put fear in the hearts of these prison guards. Teach them we animals, so handle us with disregard. So now we dying, but cause they firing on our children. Now mothers crying, they testify and they paint the picture. The justifiers say he's a thug and that's why we killed him. Could have grew out of, but now his life is cut short and ended. Now mama's become a woman whose heart is growing numb, trying to escape, scared to feel her pain since they slain her son. Her feelings, she keep them hidden, trying to move past the instance where she lost her bliss. Now she sinking in it, she growing distant, dealing with trauma, she running deeper into the dark. But growing numb is a symptom stemming from dying hearts. Numb as a woman becomes when rape has become the norm, then having to call the police after they slain her son. Some sons are slain and the daughter's raped. Can you feel that pain? This what it means to be black in this current day. This the stuff that make my people wanna run away and bleach their skin and pretend that they another way. Like soldiers coming back home, surviving the bloody war. What we got is PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder. But tonight we take the road to finally recover, cause the day we gon' face it, don't put me in a coma.
This weekend, 9 men in Miami ended 22 days of self-imposed starvation. Their sacrifice to draw attention to one of our community's most egregious failings: shootings, sudden loss by gunfire. That should already have had full attention, but sadly, it does not.
I just can't. I just had to come in here and get You all right? You sure? Because you were so heavy on my heart this morning. That's why I had to come and hug you, Nick. I was just trying to do it.
She did. You're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
You have to go get her hair done and then nails done. I don't know if...
Yeah, I just had to come and hug you, Nick.
I come from the parts of America where hundreds of people are dying. You know, between January and March of when I moved to Liberty City, Miami, 356 people had been murdered. Over 1,000. Imagine 1,000 youth. Youth. All from gun violence. It's all gun violence. Thousands of people.
But how does that happen? Like gun violence in Chicago, how is that so? Like, how does it start?
When Henry Flagler was building his railroad in Florida, he needed a place for his black workers to live because segregation and Jim Crow laws prevented blacks from living within any area they desired. The land west of the railroad tracks was designated as Colored Town and was the beginning of a unique black community that is now known as Overtown. Overtown grew into a vibrant community that flourished with hotels, furniture stores, markets, barbershops, theaters, grocery stores, exotic restaurants, and lavish nightclubs. Celebrities such as Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Cab Calloway, Sam Cooke, Muhammad Ali, Josephine Baker, Billie Holiday, Nat King Cole, and many other famous artists performed and stayed in Overtown. Today, Overtown is a ghost of what it once was. The construction of the I-95 expressway contributed significantly to the destruction of Overtown and the dismantling of the community of Overtown in general. Today, Overtown is one of the poorest areas in Miami.
Arthur was a warm and kind-hearted person. Joyful, loving, kind. He was just great. Personality-wise, was just sweet. He was my cherished, and I cherish my saint because he was my love, my one and my only and my first love.
When I went to Miami, I was about 8 or 9, and he was 2 years younger than me. So that's how old he was.
Especially when we first moved from Georgia to Miami, when he was attending school. You know, I had heard so many stories about the kids in Florida and whatever, and I always had not a fear, but I always want to be protective for him or whatever. And like when he would get out of school or whatever, I would kind of stand around on the corner to make sure he got home safely and nobody bothered him or anything like that. And
my mom's house is always filled with kids. You know, you used to have to step over them to get to where you need to go. And Bubba was one of those kids. We lived over town on 6th Court and 14th Street. And he was this little boy that had a lot of life. You know, he always was busy doing things.
You know, sometimes you wish you could go back to childhood days, but because it was enjoyable. And the neighborhood was a super neighborhood. People knew each other. People enjoyed the neighborhood. People talked to each other, spent time. It just was a joy growing up here in Miami. And the neighborhood was a super neighborhood. People knew each other. Played ball. We had mock races. We would race each other and do things like that. But it just was so cohesive and so friendly, if you will.
In America, they have things called eminent domain, meaning that the government can come and take the property back at any given time.
Like any given time?
At the area.
Without prior notice?
In the area where I live at, Liberty City, the area where I moved, where there was 356 deaths in the first 3 months of the year, and just Miami-wide. Those are the children of the Bahamians and African American slaves that built a place called Overtown.
Okay.
They built Overtown. They got paid for it, and not built Overtown, they built South Beach. Okay. South Beach was built by African Americans and Bahamians.
Oh, I see.
Yes, by blacks. So when the blacks built South Beach, they would take the money that they made and they bought a town called Overtown. Blacks owned that town. Okay. Our own movie theaters, our own restaurants, our own.
And of course, Miami had changed tremendously because I-95 was not here when I left.
A very cruel decision was made in the mid-50s and early 1960s having to do with how to bring I-95 into downtown Miami. The business community, the downtown business establishment wanted to have that expressway come into downtown Miami as far west as possible to allow for the expansion of downtown to the east. That meant into Overtown, even though it could have come down the old railroad track. And so the decision was made despite black protests.
I mean, the Miami Housing Authority in the mid-1960s deliberately chose black neighborhoods to be the recipients of relocation housing from displacement of the interstate highway. They were quite explicit in this respect because their argument was if you put relocation housing into white neighborhoods, well, then those neighborhoods will just go downhill. So we're going to go ahead and concentrate the adverse effects of relocation housing by forcing these buildings onto the actual black suburban neighborhoods that were largely, built to escape the poverty of the Central Negro District. And there are, these gripping accounts of black people protesting at, town hall meetings and forming homeowners associations, creating LLCs, limited liability corporations that will basically engage in shared ownership of rental property.
How long have you lived here?
Over 25 years. My father really owns the home, and we really, being an older man, I don't see how he can start all over again.
Well, then you were brought up here.
Yes, I was.
Do you have any feelings about the idea of a bulldozer going through the home you were brought up in?
Oh, mixed emotions, really.
Do you have any idea at all what you'll do if you do have to move, though, where you'll move to?
No, we do not have any idea because we haven't been informed. I mean, we've heard over a period of time this was going to happen, but when?
So now they need to expand a highway called I-95. So they say, hey, let's expand the area, let's extend the highway of I-95 through where the whites are because they have all the extra land for it. We can build right through there without disturbing any of the homes. The whites said, we don't want a highway running through our place. Build it through where the blacks are.
About the 20th of January, when God sent a great big flood, it run the planters from their beautiful homes.
They had completely destroyed the Old Town community for the most part because the houses were gone, you know, I-95 coming right down 3rd Avenue. And for those folk who remember, 3rd Avenue was a major thoroughfare, particularly for Old Town, as well as 2nd Avenue. That's where all the activities occurred. You had 3 or 4 hotels, you had nightclubs, you had 3 or 4 theaters, and all that went away.
Lived in a refugee camp or in some tenant's home, you'd learn not to be afeard of ice or fear.
You got a lot of people, blacks, who had no place to go, who were, in some instances, forced by eminent domain out of their homes, those who did own properties.
People had to find places to go, you know. The government didn't try to find no places because those places we lived in was like rental places, you know, so they wasn't ours, you know. So it was like when the expressway came through, everybody kind of like scattered, you know, different places. So yeah, you know, it was heartbreaking.
It was an incredible displacement of tens of thousands of people in a very short time, and that really explained this rush of people into Liberty City.
We moved from there to 7th and 9th Street and 22nd Avenue.
This is, again, another one of those largely overlooked and unseen conflicts. But it absolutely happened in ways that then set the table for the poverty that would afflict Liberty City with the McDuffie episode. And everything in the city is similarly manicured from one generation to the next. So McDuffie is going to be a child of Jim Crow. And that's why it's important, you know, among many reasons, to understand how this history is changing the city. The riots that hit Miami in May of 1980 are really, 50 years in the making, right? You have not only a number of different problems that are affecting the neighborhoods of Liberty City and Brownsville that go back into the 1940s and 1930s, but there's also practices of policing that are afflicting black neighborhoods in Miami that really are, from the outset, problems that are uniquely borne by the black neighborhoods of that city.
There was a leader in Liberty City named
Hakeem Roys.
What essentially happened, you had Mr. McDuffie, who was riding a motorcycle, 2 o'clock in the morning. He stopped at a red light, but there was nobody around. 2 o'clock in the morning, no cars. So he sped from the red light, popped a wheelie, which is riding the motorcycle on the back tire for a little bit of distance, not thinking anybody's there. Then all of a sudden, Sergeant Diggs, one of the supervisors, gave chase. And they chased him around the city, wound up at an entrance to the expressway. Mr. McDuffie, realizing there was a sharp turn, that he couldn't maneuver that turn, he stopped the motorcycle, put the kickstand down. First officer to him was an officer named Meyer. He was a relatively young, new officer. He approached him with his hands up. Meyer pulled his gun, stopped. McDuffie held his hands up. Well, by this time, you had any number of police cars arriving. They all jumped out of the car and rushed him. And subsequently began to beat him. And they talk about nightsticks. They not only did they have nightsticks, they used something called a kellite. But this is a flashlight that's very long, that's about 1.5 feet, and it has a heavy light orb, and beat him to virtually unconsciousness.
I always told my mom, I said, if he could have just made it to the house. We lived on 34th and 12th. That happened on 36th and 2nd Avenue. I said, Mom, he was trying to get home. He was just trying to get home. Just trying to get home. It's still happening. 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 It's safe.
I was the on-call sergeant that night, and I received the call. Based on my previous experience in working in internal affairs, I knew that officers often would collude and get their story straight, if you would, before they met with internal affairs. I told the sergeants and people that were involved, they identified, nobody goes home until I get a chance to interview you. Now, it's interesting, the report shows, and this is factual, the incident happened at 2 a.m. I was not called until 6 a.m.
As my kid arrived from school, I drove to the hospital. There was 4 hours before I seen Arthur. When I did see Arthur, it was like, no, this is not Arthur. Arthur's head was so swollen. There's no features in his face at all. Arthur's eyes were totally popped out. The neck was nowhere to be found on Arthur. It was just totally swollen all up. Arthur's body was more bruises and more scratches from the ground, was just totally all over his legs and his arms, and the total body movement was just a jerk movement. And I'm saying to myself, no accident could look like this.
He actually was deceased on the scene when it first happened. I mean, his head was crushed in, and he had to be on life supports to have any sign of life at all.
When he was killed, he was on the ground with his hands cuffed behind his back and his head resting on the curb. And one of the officers, Alex Marrero, straddled Mr. McDuffie and used his long flashlight to come down and strike him on the back of his head. And because his head couldn't recoil, it split his skull.
Well, it later turned out that it was the medical examiner's office that told the police department that the wounds that Mr. McDuffie suffered were inconsistent with the police reports that were written.
Dr. Wright, what made you decide that the death of Arthur McDuffie was not the result of a traffic accident?
The correlation of his injuries with the scene examination and the examination of the bicycle clearly indicated that he was beaten to death.
He had no injuries from an accident, falling off his motorcycle or wrecking the motorcycle?
No significant injuries whatsoever.
What did he die from?
He died as a result of blunt head injuries with destruction of his underlying brain. He was beaten to death. The most severe wound is the one which is between his eyes, fractured his skull, and literally destroyed his brain.
How hard would someone have to hit someone to inflict such an injury?
Amazingly hard.
Terrible. They beat my child to death. They beat him to death like a dog. Just like a dog. They beat him to death. They beat up his head like
Janet Reno then was the head state attorney. From there, it was working with the state attorney's office.
We have filed charges today against 5 officers of the Public Safety Department as a result of the tragic killing of Mr. Arthur McDuffie and the ensuing effort to cover up the circumstances surrounding it.
4 Dade County policemen were charged with manslaughter: Sergeant Ira Diggs, Officer Alex Marrero, Officer William Hanlon, and Officer Michael Watts. Sergeant Herbert Evans was charged with tampering with evidence and being an accessory after the fact. The McDuffie homicide has opened the largest police brutality investigation in Dade County's history. Sergeant Ira Diggs and officers Michael Watts, Alex Marrero, and Charles Vaverka have 47 complaints on their records, 12 involving physical force. None were ever convicted of brutality. Now they face possible murder charges.
One of my proudest moments of him when the first time he came home, he was dressed in his Marine uniform, and he was, he really looked swell.
He got his dress blues, and at that time, the only way you could get a dress blue uniform in the Marine Corps, you had to be an outstanding Marine. He got his dress blues coming out of boot camp, and that's very hard to do. So for you to come out of boot camp and be the only guy out of 20, 25, at least 30 guys, you had to be the best at what you did, and he was the only guy, the black guy, that got the dress blues out of all those guys, because I remember that surely, and seeing him in his dress blues just blew my mind. I knew I wanted to be a Marine then.
He was a military MP, just like the police is out in civilian life, but the military police does that.
When I come to die, Jesus, take me home high.
I think the 2 hardest times was hearing what happened and then seeing being at the funeral itself. Very difficult. Very difficult. But it was an excellent homegoing service for him. And what have you. With all that surrounding that, there was a common belief that there's no way that all these guys would get off. That somebody was going to get convicted.
You think about what it is that was alleged to have happened. If it happened, destroys the criminal justice system in Dade County. What could be worse than sworn officers covering for themselves? I can't think of anything.
We were right. We were to be concerned about the outcome.
It took 3 weeks to find a jury here. It took 4 weeks to hear all the arguments and the evidence, but it took the jury less than 3 hours to reach the verdict. The 6 members of the all-white male jury left the courtroom at 11:30. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, they signaled a verdict was at hand.
We, the jury at Tampa, Hillsborough County, this 17th day of May, 1980, find the defendant, Michael Watts, as to manslaughter as charged in count 2 of the information, not guilty. So say we all, David H. Fisher, former.
I thought it was a joke when it started, and I don't think it should have ever gotten this far in the first place.
As the truth came out, and thank God, this country still has people who are honest and can base their opinion on the truth. Well, the black community is going to feel very remorseful about this, but I don't see why. The truth came out, and we're going to have to live with the truth. If people can't live with the truth, then what are we going to live with?